Nigeria. We often call ourselves the giant of Africa, but are we? Only about 54% of Nigerians have access to electricity. Meanwhile, Ghana, our smaller neighbor, with a fraction of our resources, has over 85% electricity access, the best in sub-Saharan Africa. But this isn't just about numbers. Electricity doesn't just power homes, it often decides who can work, who can study, and who can survive. This is why many businesses and homes rely on generators just to function. When you ask the average Nigerian why electricity doesn't work, the answer is almost always the same: the government and corruption. And yes, Nigeria is deeply corrupt, and corruption has done real damage to the power sector. But corruption isn't the only reason electricity fails, because even if corruption disappeared tomorrow, Nigeria would still be running an outdated, overstretched, and underfunded electricity system that was never designed to serve over 220 million people reliably. So today, instead of asking who to blame, let's ask a deeper question. What has to work technically and economically for the country to have 24/7 electricity? And where exactly does Nigeria fail? Electricity does not just appear in our homes or businesses. It moves through four main stages. First is generation. Power plants produce electricity powered by coal, nuclear energy, natural gas, and renewable sources like water and wind. These plants can be owned by governments, private companies, or both. From there, it moves to the second stage, which is transmission. Transmission lines are high voltage lines that carry large amounts of electricity across long distances. That power then reaches substations, where the voltage is reduced to safe levels for use. And finally, distribution. Electricity travels through local poles and wires and reaches our homes and businesses. For electricity to be reliable, every single stage must work together every single day. And that's where Nigeria's real problem begins. Let's start with generation. Nigeria's installed electricity capacity is around 13,000 to 14,000 megawatts. Now, that might sound like a lot. In theory, it should be enough to make a real difference. So, the obvious question is, if Nigeria can generate that much power, why are we still in darkness? Here is the answer. Nigeria may have over 13,000 megawatts installed, but what is actually generated and delivered is far lower. Why? Power plants go offline due to poor maintenance. Gas supply to thermal plants are inconsistent. Equipments are old. And even when power is generated, the grid can't carry it. At Nigeria's peak in recent years, only about 5,000 to 6,000 megawatts actually reaches homes and businesses for over 220 million people. That's not just a generation problem, that's a system problem. And this is where Nigeria's biggest bottleneck appears: transmission. Think of transmission lines like highways for electricity. They carry power from the plants to cities and towns across the country. Nigeria's transmission lines are old, overstretched, poorly maintained, and vulnerable to vandalism. Many of these transmission lines were built decades ago and have not been properly upgraded or maintained. So even when power plants produce electricity, the grid overloads, collapses, or forces generators to shut down. This is why Nigeria experiences system collapse, where the entire national grid goes down at once. But upgrading transmission isn't easy. It's very expensive. It takes years, requires coordination across regions, and depends on stable funding. And that leads directly to distribution problem. Distribution is what affects most Nigerians. People don't really think about the power plants. They think about the transformers that keep blowing up. They think about why street A has electricity and street B doesn't. They think about the building next to theirs that has electricity, but they don't. So why? This is because the distribution networks in many parts of Nigeria were built for far fewer people and far lower demand. Over time, more houses were added, more businesses connected, and more load placed on the same transformers and feeders without proper upgrades. So what happens? Transformers overload and blow. Entire neighborhoods lose power. Not because electricity doesn't exist, but because the local network can't carry it safely. On top of that, the billing system in the country is very weak. According to Nigeria's electricity regulator, over 40% of electricity revenue is lost through power theft and unpaid bills. That means for every naira worth of electricity generated, nearly half the money disappears. This is not sustainable. Electricity systems survive on revenue. So the distribution companies face a problem. They don't recover enough money, they can't replace transformers, and they can't expand capacity. Electricity exists in the system, but the distribution network just can't deliver it. So we see Nigeria's problem isn't just about one single failure. It's about multiple failures happening at the same time in generation, transmission, and distribution, each one making the others worse. Now, how has the Nigerian government responded to all of this? Well, the Nigerian government has not ignored the problem. For years now, the government has been subsidizing electricity, basically paying part of the bill so ordinary people could afford power. The government has been spending billions just to keep the lights on. And in the process, they racked up massive debts to investors and electricity distributors, making the very companies that could fix and upgrade the power plants and transmission lines aren't even getting paid. And there is no money left for maintenance or upgrades. But recently, things have started to change. The government is slowly removing those subsidies and moving towards prices that reflect what electricity costs to produce. But even after recent changes, the government still paid 1.98 trillion naira in the last 12 months, which shows how massive this problem is. There has also been a big reform. A new law passed in 2023 now lets individual states generate and manage their own electricity instead of depending entirely on the national grid. This law also made provisions to support the use of renewable energy like solar energy. This could actually be a very big game changer. States can now tailor solutions to their specific needs instead of waiting for a national or general fix. So, on the paper at least, there is a plan. The government knows there is a problem and they are trying to fix it. Whether it works, well, that's what we are going to find out. To wrap this up, Nigeria's electricity problem is not mysterious, and constant power is not impossible in the country. What it lacks is a system that can consistently convert capacity into reliable electricity. Smaller African countries like Ghana, Morocco, and Egypt all show that efficiency matters, and largely populated countries like the United States show that scale is possible. Nigeria's electricity problem can be solved, but only when focus shifts into building systems that can last, systems that can grow with the population, systems that are maintained, not just built, systems that collect revenue and reinvest it, systems that work. If this video helped you understand Nigeria's electricity problem more clearly, consider liking it. It helps more people see it. And if you want more explainers like this, subscribe. Thanks for watching, guys.